how you doing today? So, um, after my last live on Alexander Graham Bell, I was just so out of it that I couldn't do my summary that I did on the memoir. So, in my head, I feel like this is still part of that live, even though it's a different live, because this is something that I wish I could have gotten done then. But I would have rather do another live for it than not feel like I'm giving a good summary. Um, so yeah. So for what we're doing today is we're going to look at some of the key pieces of the summary that I highlighted, and we're going to not the summary, key pieces of the address that I highlighted because we had read the entirety of Marriage and Address to the Deaf by Alexander Graham Bell. And I just didn't get to really do my final recap on that because I had said I needed more time to process all of that. Um, so that's what we're doing today. And yeah, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you. Hi, my name is Lexi, also known as and doing business as Deaf Child. In 2022, my company was listed as number 14 Best Louisiana Events Companies and Startups. I have been doing business as Deaf Child since 2013. I have my Bachelor of Science in Music Industry Studies and Business Administration, and deafness runs in my family genetically. Speech is not fully accessible to me. And I've got about 50 certifications in marketing and sales that you can find at noladeafchild.com. All right, so today I want to go over all of this. Basically, what we were reading last time was the Google Doc book from Marriage and Address to the Deaf, and that is linked in the description. And the entire reading is also linked there as well. And so I wanted to on here it doesn't really let me highlight the words, so I like doing that to show you which parts in particular I'm talking about. And so what I did was download the memoir from here, and I uploaded the PDF into my Google Drive, and then I converted that into a document so I can edit it. But the thing is, whenever I did that, it uploaded in a really weird way in terms of the format. So you'll see that, like the way that the words arranged, it just happened like that whenever I imported it. And I just don't have the energy right now to go through. I was not about to go reformat this whole thing for the live, so I left it as is, and I just went through and I highlighted the parts I wanted to discuss. So you'll see what I'm talking about as we keep going. Um, and I also wanted to mention too, so in the memoir upon the formation of a deaf variety of the human race, I had done summaries of each chapter as we went along, and I compared each chapter to the others as we went along, and then I summed it up at the end. Well, in this version, in the address, it wasn't broken down into any type of segment besides the actual address and the appendix. Um, so I didn't do a necessary full recap or summary, but what I did do was every time I caught Alexander Graham Bell, basically in a lie or being hypocritical, um, I called him out on that, and I had I think I forgot how many, but several exhibits throughout the address in my reading where I called out where Alexander Graham Bell contradicted himself. And so in those exhibits, I find that those are actually kind of good summaries of what's happening as you go along. So if you do need that for any type of mental or studying reference, I find that that's probably a good tool or a good system to consider. So yeah, so moving on from now, we're just going to go into what we're going to do is recap some of the key passages that I highlighted that I wanted to make sure that your attention was brought to. And those include the exhibits, but it's also more than the exhibits. Um, And then I wanted to, from there, just give a final summary and wrap this baby up for once and for all. Okay, so getting started finally. Um, what I highlighted here, let's see if I have bad vision, so I'm going to bring this up a little bit more closer for us. Zooming in. And then the link here, like if whenever you start to see like how all of this is a little bit odd, but in terms of the way it came in, and this page is actually not so bad, but as we scroll through, you'll see it kind of gets worse with the way it formats. But anything I've highlighted, if you want to confirm if it's actually in the address, that is linked in the description, and you can confirm it for yourself. And I'm going to leave this up just in case we need a cross-reference because this is so weird. But I wanted to bring your attention at the beginning of it. He's one of the first things he says, in like the second to third, depending on how you look at it, paragraph-ish of ideas. He's saying, you will go out into the great road, the road of hearing and speaking people, a road of people who cannot spell upon their fingers or make signs. Are you prepared for that change, and what is to be your position in that road? I would have you all remember that you yourselves are part of that great road of hearing and speaking people. You are not a race distinct and apart. You must fulfill the duties of life and make your way to honorable positions among hearing and speaking people. Okay. Then he says, now I have considered what subject I would bring to your attention tonight, the consideration of which would be of assistance to you when you go out into the road. And there is no subject, I am sure, that lies closer to your hearts than the subject of marriage. It is a very difficult thing for me to speak to you upon that subject, because I know that an idea has gone forth, and is very generally believed in by the deaf of this country, that I want to prevent you from marrying as you choose, and that I have tried to pass a law to interfere with your marriages. But, my friends, it is not true. I have never done such a thing, nor do I intend to. And before I speak upon this subject, I want you distinctly to understand that I have no intention of interfering with your liberty of marriage. You can marry whom you choose, and I hope you will be happy. It is not for me to blame you for marrying to suit yourselves, for you all know that I myself, the son of a deaf mother, have married a deaf wife. I think, however, that it is the duty of every good man and every good woman to remember that children follow marriage, and I am sure that there is no one among the deaf who desires to have this affliction handed down to his children. You all know that I have devoted considerable study and thought to the subject of the inheritance of deafness. And if you will put away prejudice out of your minds and take up my researches relating to the deaf, you will find something that may be of value to you all. It may not be of much importance to you to inquire whether by and by, in 100 years or so, we may have a deaf variety of the human race. That is a matter of great interest to scientific men, but not of special value to you. What you want to know, and what you are interested in, is this: are you yourself liable to have deaf offspring? Now, one value in my researches that you will find is this: that you can gain information that may assure you that you may increase your liability to have deaf offspring or diminish it according to the way in which you marry. Now, in my researches, I think I have found a surer and more safe guide to those cases that are liable to transmit the defect. My results, however, until verified by other observers, should be received as probable, not only and not certainly proved. So far as I can find out, the hereditary character of the defect in a family is roughly indicated by the proportion of the family who are deaf. This conclusion is exceedingly probable, and should therefore be taken as a guide by those who desire to avoid the production of deaf offspring. My statistics are confessedly very imperfect, and many persons have hastily concluded that the results are, therefore, of no value or significance. Now there is a law of heredity that may afford great comfort to many of the deaf, the law of reversion, very strong tendency in offspring to revert to the normal type of the race. Probabilities for your guidance. Whatever may be the character of the deafness in your own case, you will probably diminish your liability to have deaf offspring by marrying a hearing person in whose family there is no deafness, by marrying a deaf person not born deaf who has no deaf relatives, or a hearing person or a hearing brother or sister of such a person. On the other hand, you will probably increase your liability to have deaf offspring by marrying a deaf person not born deaf who has deaf relatives, or a hearing brother or sister of such a person, by marrying a deaf person born deaf who has no deaf relatives, or a hearing brother or sister of such a person, by marrying a deaf person born deaf who has deaf relatives, or a hearing brother or sister of such a person. Of course, I apologize, kept reading. Then he says, until finally the deaf tendency disappears and all the descendants will hear. On the other hand, suppose that the tendency to produce hearing offspring disappears and all the descendants will be deaf. This family would then constitute a deaf variety of the race, in which deaf offspring would be the rule and hearing offspring the exception. Cases will constantly arise in which a proposed marriage will appear undesirable and desirable both at the same time. Of course, I have nothing to say as to what the young people should do. That is a matter for them to decide. I cannot even undertake to advise. Hence, this person, by marrying a congenitally deaf person in whose family deafness is hereditary, will create a liability to have deaf offspring, which would not otherwise exist. From this point of view, the marriage is undesirable. On the other hand, from the point of view of the person born deaf, such a marriage is extremely desirable, for it will diminish the hereditary tendency in his family. Now, I have come before you tonight to show you that there may be something in my researches of benefit to you. I want also to assure you that there is nothing of harm. I want to disabuse your minds entirely of the idea that I intend or desire to interfere with your perfect liberty of choice. I claim the right to advise you as I would advise my own children or any young people in whom I feel an interest. In this matter, my views coincide very closely with those recently expressed by President Gallaudet through the columns of Science. You have to live in a world of hearing and speaking people, and everything that will help you to mingle with hearing and speaking people will promote your welfare and happiness. A hearing partner will wed you to the hearing world and be of inestimable value to you in all the relations of life. Not only will your own success in life be thereby increased, but the welfare of your children will be materially promoted. It is surely to the interest of children, both deaf and hearing, that one of at least of their parents should hear. I would therefore hold before you as the ideal marriage, a marriage with a hearing person. Do not let anyone place in your minds that the idea that such a marriage cannot be a happy one. Do not let anyone make you believe that you cannot find a hearing person who will treat you as an equal. The chances are infinitely in your favor that out of the millions of hearing persons in this country, you may be able to find one with whom you may be happy, than that you should find one among the smaller numbers of the deaf. I think this sentiment is hurtful that makes you believe you can only be happy with a deaf companion. That is a mistake, and I believe a grave one. I would have you believe that the welfare of yourself and your children will be greatly promoted by marriage with a hearing partner, if you can find one with whom you can be happy. I hope that you will all dispel from your minds any idea that I intend to interfere with your liberty of marriage. I know that very grave misconceptions of my positions and views have been circulated during the past few years among the deaf. I have before me tonight an audience composed of the brightest and most intelligent minds among the deaf, and I want you to help me in dispelling these ideas. Now, I would impress upon your minds the fact that if you want to do a man justice, you should believe what a man says himself rather than what people say he says. But now I begin to be afraid of you, for you are the interviewers in this case, and I wonder how I shall be reported by you in the newspapers of the deaf. I am talking to you by word of mouth while my friend Professor Frey is translating what I say into the sign language. Then by and by you will translate it all back into English for the benefit of your deaf friends in distant parts. You are the interviewers this time, and I fear you are just as liable to make errors of statement as an ordinary newspaper reporter. I have therefore brought with me tonight a gentleman who has taken a stenographic account of all that I am saying to you. I will look over his notes and correct them, and then it will afford me pleasure to present every member of the Literary Society with a printed copy of my remarks. Then he says, remoteness of blood is eminently favorable to the production of vigorous offspring. I think I missed something. Did I miss something? No, that's it. Okay, then he says, remoteness of blood is eminently favorable to the production of vigorous offspring, and those deaf persons who have many relatives deaf would greatly diminish their liability to have deaf offspring by marrying persons very remote in blood from themselves. Children, I think, tend to revert to the common ancestors of their parents. If the nearest common ancestors are very far back in the line of ancestry, the children tend to revert to the common type of the race. Deafness and other defects would be most likely to disappear from a family by marriage with a person of different nationality. English, Irish, Scottish, German, Scandinavian, and Russian blood seems to mingle beneficially with the Anglo-Saxon American, apparently producing increased vigor in the offspring. I trust these suggestions may be of service to our deaf friends. Okay, so I just read to you guys and tried to, in one cohesive unit, just the red flags that I highlighted out of the context of the rest of this article. And if you want to put that back into context, that video is linked below where I read the entire fucking thing and I criticized it all as I went. So if you also want to hear my critique and commentary reactions to all of the bullshit fuckery that I just said to you, that's all there too. Because I was about to say some shit as I was reading it, but then it's just repeating some shit that I already said. So, you know. Um, Okay, so, but what you notice here is the ways in which he contradicts himself, and those are shown in the exhibits. I do already explain that, but to sum it up, he's talking about how he's trying to tell deaf people, I've never said anything about you guys getting married, but here, let me talk to you about you guys getting married. After writing that memoir upon the formation of a deaf variety of the human race, and there's like entire chapters about deaf marriage and deaf families, and it's all about it. And then he basically pretty much says, yeah, I don't care if you get married. I'm just trying to stop you from having kids, because you don't want more deaf people to exist. That's basically the summary of this entire fucking memoir. You know what the fuck I mean? Um, and he gaslights deaf people in so many different ways. It's not even fucking funny. It's just like, how the hell? Um, and the way he does this is all through marketing strategies as well. And so it also makes you look at the news differently, publications differently, press reporting differently. Um, and thinking about that, it's just one of those things where, people who are oppressed will act like they're the victims. When he's talking about how he's afraid of us or whatever, and he's acted like, you know, that he basically treats deaf like we don't understand these deaf issues because he's like, these are for scientific men to discuss, not for you. Let me tell you what you care about as if you don't know what you want to care about. You know what I mean? So he speaks down to deaf people as if he knows more than us about us, while basically telling deaf people that if we don't listen to only him about him, you know what I mean? We're not giving him justice. After he got sign language banned at the Milan Conference of 1880. Um, and that would be with education going forward. So I'll have to do like a whole different live on the history of the sign language ban and getting an access to it. And I also kind of think indigenous erasure of sign language should be included in that discussion as well. So I will talk with people on that. Awesome. But yeah, I had a point. I apologize. Let me drink my coffee. Yeah. Okay. So whenever, he's basically starting this off with all kind of like you have this idea in your head. He basically had said like an idea had gone forth in the deaf community. Um, where was it? Oh yeah, it's right here. An idea has gone forth and is very generally believed. And then he kind of basically tries to imply as if the deaf community could be part of spreading it whenever down the road he's like, well, you're the ones in charge of the deaf reporting, you know? Um, yeah, all of that. But whenever he's saying this shit, like there's this idea that went forth. And he's calling it a grave misconception, as if he didn't publish the memoir upon the formation of a deaf variety of the human race. And in the last live that this is a follow up to that I was telling you about, I do a comparison between the address and the memoir. So whenever he's on that bullshit fuckery, I'm literally over here just like,
take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
I can go anywhere. Take a look, it's in a book. Reading rainbow. Reading rainbow. That's how I feel. Anywho, sorry. But and then he's over here like, I'm not trying to tell you guys what you should do with your marriage while giving them like probabilities for your guidance. And then he literally says, I'm not trying to give you advice on your marriage. And then he says, I feel, what did he say? I feel entitled or claim? Let me look. He says, yes, he says, I claim the right to advise you. How that, there's so much, all of this is so fucked up, but he says, I claim the right to advise you. And then he says, I've never tried to interfere with your liberty of marriage. So, is advice interference? What does Google say? Unsolicited advice causes stress. That's interesting. Who would have thought? Um, so, you know what the fuck I mean? Advice can also be seen as interference. So, you see what I mean? In the place he says he's not doing the thing he's doing, like he's literally doing it. This whole document is him telling on himself. And so the entire point of marriage and the entire summary. Here's the TLDR right here. Let me see if I can do it. Let's see if I can bang this out. Marriage and address to the deaf. The entire summary, he gets a bunch of deaf people together after writing an entire memoir about how he wanted to eradicate deaf people and get rid of deaf marriage and disseminate false information about deaf people in order to get people to fear deaf people and avoid them. And he also is talking about how deaf people need to be segregated. Um, and we need to breed them out. He says those things. Okay. After that, after he publishes this memoir and he delivers it in two different occasions, 8 years later, he gives a speech to the deaf people and he's like, y'all had that shit in your head. I never said or did any of that. I'm scared of you because you're telling people I did that, and I don't know why you would say that because it's not like I ever did that. And um fucking, but also, can you please convince other deaf people I didn't do that? And I have a deaf mom and a deaf wife, so of course it's not possible for me to have done that. I'm one of you guys. Yeah, I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your life or your marriage, but if you don't do what I tell you about your marriage and you keep having deaf kids, it's disgusting. That's basically what Alexander Graham Bell said. And then he said, none of these topics are important to you. You don't need to know about any of this. This is for smarter people to discuss. That's literally basically what he fucking said. That's the summary. That's it. we did the damn thing. You know what I mean? And then one more thought that I had. So all of this is entirely fucked up. This whole concept of looking at the Anglo-Saxon beneficial blood mix thing. I don't know what words to use that don't sound really fucked up. But that fucked up shit show, he's talking about how if different European nationalities come together, they can breed out deafness. That's not fucking true, dipshit. Me and my family's fucking proof of that. You know how many fucking different nationalities I am? Deafness is genetic on both sides of my family. You know what the fuck I mean? And because my colonizer ass family has been in the United States for over 7 to 8 generations, there's a lot of lineages that I have to go account for. And I always thought I was mostly Irish, but it turns out I'm mostly Scottish. Who would have thought? So, I'm Scottish, English, Irish, Welsh, a little Spanish, and some other shit too. A bunch of other shit. Lots of shit. Um, so I think it's interesting because genetically or whatever, if you want to be like, I don't know what words to use about all of this. So I'm gonna just try to make my point and work on using better words in the future as I learn about these things. But fucking your genealogy, like the traits you inherit are from your ancestors the last 6 to 7 generations ago. Well, if my ancestors the last 6 to 7 generations ago have all been up in America, I gotta go back another 6 to 7 generations ago to find out where did my features come from and stuff like that. Um, and where is my background? If you want to think of beyond the settler colonizer identity of your heritage, right? Like, I don't know. Is that right? I don't know if that was, but we're working on that. But my point is, deafness is genetic in my family. We have all, and it's proof that he's fucking wrong. I'm just saying, my family. I am living proof that Alexander Graham Bell is a fucking idiot. All right, yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up there before I say something stupid or wrong, or I don't know. Like if, like, 'cause I thought I had a point there, but now I don't know if that was a good one, and I feel like I said that before here, but yeah, um, no, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you guys. Just to wrap it all up, I feel like I could just end this with my favorite. What the hell? Alexander Graham Bell.
No one is available to take your call. Please leave a message.
Thanks for watching. You might want to adjust the volume after all of this because a loud music is going to play. So yeah, adjust the volume. And then if you're coming to these lives anyway, I do have a loyalty program, yolo.child.com/loyalty. If you sign up for my site as a member and you follow the check-in procedure, you can get points just for showing up to these lives anyway. So I just want to let you know about that. Yeah, I always have a really hard time saying goodbye because saying goodbye really just kind of feels like you're Tom Hanks. You know what I mean? Over here, just like, well done, Wilson. But anywho, yeah. So thank you for being here and goodbye.